Welcome back to Yes, We're Adopted. Don't make it weird. I'm Brett. That's Davo. This is his car because we are on our way to get some Wendy's. Because Wendy's is where adopted people go.
Wendy's and adopted people got history.
Yeah. You know, Dave Thomas, he's adopted. And so we're going to go celebrate adoption by going to eat some Wendy's. Last week, we put a call out there for people saying, we need your help. And I think I just knocked my glasses off my face.
Yeah,
Giving us ideas for topics because we can ramble for ever and ever. But if it's something that's not relevant to you, then who really cares about that, right? So when we asked people to send us in a bunch of questions, we actually got a good list of them right here. Like, people started messaging us and saying, hey, can you talk about this? What are your thoughts about that? So we're going to spend a little bit of time answering some of those questions that have come in here. And so the first question to actually come in, we're just going to go right in order, people. Very first question that came in is this. This is from Bridget. Thank you, Bridget. That was really weird.
Don't do that.
Thank you so much, Bridget. We thank you.
It's creepy when you do it that way.
So, Davo, your
Yes.
parents ever utilize any of those things?
No.
Any kind of therapies?
They did not. My
No.
parents, they didn't do any of those kinds of things. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I get where people are coming from with all of these interventional therapy sorts of things, but like, what are we? I guess I have a hard time trying to figure out what exactly we're intervening for. Like, what physical therapy specifically? Like, I know a lot of people are like, we need to do these physical therapies for kids that are physically healthy, right? Like, that one doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Like, occupational therapy, I guess I don't really understand maybe a lot of the time what some of those therapies actually entail, but like, they seem like they're preventative, or they seem like they're being used preventatively for something that maybe was never going to exist anyway, or maybe was never really going to manifest anyway,
happened.
right? Like, it hasn't happened, but because like it's a correlation doesn't equal causation thing for me, right? Like, we put our kids in all of these therapies so they didn't develop all of those things, but that's just correlative. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were going to develop those things.
For us, it was a little bit different because, you know, we were adopted like 30 years ago, right? Like 30 some years ago, and it was a different time. It was a different time, it was different what was socially acceptable back in the day, and, you know, how people perceived adoption and just raising kids in general. And so for us, I gotta put this here. Whew, it's heavy. So back in the day, 30 some years ago, it was completely different around adoption. You know, it started getting big and people were just trying to figure things out. And also just around parenting in general. You know, the way that parents raised their kids 30 years ago is completely different than how they raise their kids now. And back in the day, it was, my kid is sturdy and is going to be okay. Nowadays, it's anybody who's a child is going to break at some point. I don't know, that's my point of view, at least.
Points.
At all points.
They're going to break all of the
Yeah,
breakings.
and I don't understand why that is. Like, I know my kid has fallen, she's, you know, hurt herself a few times, but she always gets back up. You know, she bounces back. And when she gets upset, she's upset for a little bit, but then she's okay afterwards.
Right.
And I don't know, for me, I don't really understand the need for a lot of these therapies, personally. You know, again, you know, everybody's treated as a special snowflake nowadays, and I'm going to say that, and I'm going to offend some people, but I don't care.
It's interesting to bring this up now in our 30s, right? Because, like, I don't remember, I never had any of those things occur in my worldview, any of the therapies or any of that kind of stuff. But, like, as a parent, I'm way more fearful, like, naturally as a parent than I ever was as a kid, right? Like, there's all this stuff that, like, I think we put on our children that's not there. It's us just, you know, being generally afraid of, like, I'm going to screw up and somebody's going to come along and, you know, and everything's going to break and it's the worst thing ever and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, your kid doesn't care about that.
No.
Right? Like, as a parent, we make these decisions, and that's our responsibility as adults, is to make these decisions. But so many of those decisions, I just don't think they play in the long term. Like, they don't really matter as much as we want to think they matter.
Right.
And it's me being scared on behalf of my kid, but know or even need that, right? So like it's hard. I understand it's hard as a parent, and I want to say that at the end of the day, I think a lot of the things that we do for our kids are not for our kids.
That's true.
You know, and that's not necessary. Like adoptees and adopted parents get shoved, a lot of this shoved at them because it's different, right? So you need to deal with these things, you need to talk about these things or whatever. But I mean, that's all parents. We need to be thinking what's best for my kid.
Yeah.
And not necessarily what's best for me.
What's going to make you feel better in the moment.
Right? Like, I put my kids in all these therapies or all of these things or whatever, and that made me feel good that I was doing everything I could. But did it help your kid any?
Right. I mean, it might be different if you're adopting somebody who's, you know, like, say, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, speech therapy may help if they have a hard time understanding the language or hard time speaking the language, and just the pronunciations of different words, because English is weird, guys.
English is...
I don't know if you know that or not. English is weird.
Unnecessarily problematic language.
It is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if that's the case and it helps the kid, of course, go for it. Do it up. It's going to be awesome. Do it up. Did I say that?
You said do it up.
Gosh, I
Strap
apologize.
Strap up for safety.
Sorry. But, you know, if it's something physical that they need, of course. You know, if it's going to benefit the child, then yes, do it. But if it just makes you feel better, and that's the whole purpose of it, is I'm going to feel better as a parent, I mean, then I would submit that you should reevaluate that.
Yeah. I think ultimately this question is interesting because we want to say do what's best for the kids, but don't do it simply because they're adopted, right? If your kid needs therapy or if your kid needs, you know, whatever, absolutely get it for them. But not just because they're adopted, but because they need it, right? Yeah. And that's true across the board. You do what's best for your children because that's what they need, but let's not overdiagnose something just because your child is adopted.
Yep.
Do it because that's what's necessary.
Yep.
You know? Yeah.
So, those are our thoughts. Let us know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. We're going to try to keep these segments a little bit shorter than we have been before. So, let us know what you guys think about it. Comment below. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. Anything else that we forgot to say? Comment.
Yeah. And let us know what your favorite thing at Wendy's is.
Yeah, because we're going to go eat Wendy's. It's going to be delicious. So, as always from us, yes, we're adopted. Don't make it weird. Peace. I did. I apologize. I'm sorry. I did it.
That's like...
Sorry.
Oh my gosh.